All right, everyone, and now we have our next fireside chat. It is going to be between Vincent Chok, who is the founder of First Digital, as well as Henri Arslanian, who's wrote a children's book and is going to be talking about the future of stablecoins from a trust and transparency perspective. Everyone, if we could get a little silence in the room, please, for the fireside chat. Thank you very much. Henri and Vincent, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for being here. That one here. Maybe let's tilt the chairs a bit so I can see you, Vincent, properly. Here we go. We'll be a bit more intimate. Guys, thank you very much for being here. Very, very, very excited to be here with you all on at this event to really talk about, obviously, a very exciting development we have, really not only with FTUSD, but really on the future of money as well. I know how busy everybody is, so thank you for making time so we can share our passion of the topic with you guys all. I'm very, very excited to be joined by Vincent Chok today, who's not only the CEO, co-founder of First Digital, but fun fact about him, he owns a stake in a Napa winery where they made the Bored Ape wines. I have it in my office, a very good one. That was a great contribution to the ecosystem. Vincent, great to have you with us today. Guys, we're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of developments, and at the end, we have even a surprise announcement as well. Excited to share with you all today. So Vincent, maybe I've known you for almost a decade now. Many people know you as the CEO of First Digital. But can you share maybe from all the things you guys could look at, why stablecoins? And then we'll delve into it.
Well, I think, hi everyone, Vincent Chok here. Thanks for coming. Appreciate the organizers for setting up the Stablecoin Summit. I almost said Stablecoin Summer, actually, but why stablecoin?
That as well, but that's a different story.
I think stablecoin is really important to the growth of the digital asset industry. There's a lot of initiatives for really getting to a Web3 world, which I think we're still quite far away from. As earlier Paul had mentioned that stablecoin in the next decade will hit over $2 trillion. And at the moment, we're what, 170 million or billion? So there's a lot more to grow. So, we think that we're in the right position right now. Yes, there's a lot of mention of two giants. However, I think this world needs optionality, or else everyone's going to be driving a Tesla.
So actually, on that topic, you mentioned the two giants, and I get the analogy with Tesla. When people ask you, how is practically FTUSD different from some of the other giants and others, by the way, you see in the market, like what do you guys say there?
I think, of course, we're one-to-one backed US dollar stablecoin, but how we're different, I think, is sort of our DNA. We're structured as trust. So we understand rules and regulations. If there are regulations coming in, and a lot of talks about regulations in the future about licensing. However, who will be the actual stablecoin out there that can integrate and absorb new regulation when it does come in? And I think that's our position. We're strong that way. A lot of people don't know, as a trust company, we have to understand all aspects, tax reporting, regulation, in the facts of what is our reporting obligation on AML, KYC, compliance. And that's something that our stablecoin was built on top of instead of just tech. And I think going forward, the way that we look at ourselves, and they mentioned over 100 stablecoins in the market today, which is fine for us. I think the competition is healthy, but to us, everybody has a role. For the two giants and us, we're a very young stablecoin, less than a year and a half old. We've grown great partnerships. But we look at ourselves and some of the major stablecoins as sort of an intermediary, sort of like an intermediary banks to other stablecoins being built. So a lot of banks today doesn't have direct US rails, so they rely on intermediary banks. So we can play that role. We can help people build on top of our stablecoins, other currencies.
So I want to talk about that, especially I know you're a big fan of neo-banking as well. I want to talk about that in a second. But if you had a message to policymakers today, right? Actually on my show on CNBC, I had Paolo, the CEO of Tether, recently, and asked him the same question, where we have often the banks are a weak point of the entire system. We saw, for example, USDC was on stage before. When SVB went down, actually there was a serious depeg. Ironically, the risky part of the stablecoin was actually the banking system, right? If you had a message to policymakers in the room, And you mentioned regulations. What would that message be? What do you think would be the way to designing it? Is it a trust, or is it something else you would be using?
The regulators, I mean, the U.S. Stablecoin bill guidelines that came out, consultation paper, does actually state our structure as a deposit-taking institution. We're a qualified custodian to keep the separation of assets, and we do that. So we have dual balance sheet. I think it's important that we use the strongest financial institution as our treasury, and by keeping a dual balance sheet, it means that there's a clear separation of liabilities. When we use our own money, if, for example, any companies decide, let's take action on First Digital for any reason, they can't touch our client asset because it's very segregated. Unlike most stablecoins, they don't understand how to keep those assets separated, whereby if there is any future actions against the company, the customer assets are safely kept.
It's very interesting. Even as a lawyer, when I look at it, the trust structures, there's so many benefits, right? And I wish there was more awareness of the benefits of trust structures, actually, including for stablecoins. And in the broader community as well, by the way, on many regards. One thing as well, on the topic of regulations, you guys obviously based in Hong Kong, right? Big presence in Hong Kong and in Asia as well. And I know you guys obviously are looking around the world as well. What do you see as from a regulatory perspective, do you see a particular opportunity in Asia, for example, in Hong Kong or other places?
Yeah, I think so. I think the position of being regulated, a lot of companies think that just being licensed means that they really understand how to operate and do what's for the best interest of the clients and for the industry. But really truly understanding what regulation is doesn't mean that I can just operate freely with a license hanging on my back. But understanding, all right, our responsibilities, how do we deal with compliance, how do we deal with internal controls. Right now, there's a lot of talk about doing that cybersecurity. There's so much focus on cybersecurity, but really has anybody really dug into the company's back-end regulation, internal control policies, AML policies? So this is the focus of where we are going.
Very, very interesting. And actually, on regionally as well, Vincent, when obviously we talk about the role of stablecoins, first of all, it's maybe a rhetorical question, but do you believe that stablecoins could be the killer app for the digital asset space?
Well, 7 years ago, I was listening to someone's TED Talk, my friend here, which huge fan, and you did mention at that time, 7 years ago, banking today is going to be different from banking in the future. And stablecoin for fintech, his talk was about fintech and really innovative talk. But today, stablecoin is fuel. It's like a steroid for fintech. Without a stablecoin, there is no liquidity. So I've said this, it's oxygen for exchanges, it's oxygen for OTCs, it's oxygen for a lot of the builders out there, chains. If there's no liquidity, then there is really no growth in the whole crypto market.
Interesting. So, and then when you're looking at obviously, and I'm sure it's a question many people have in the room, right? When we think FTUSD, there's been obviously a lot of collaborations you guys announced. One of them is actually with Binance. Can you maybe clarify for the audience and for us, like, what is that relationship? What is the collaboration? What are you guys seeing there? And how do you think that helped actually the rise of and the growth of FTUSD?
Well, partnership is really a key to any growth. I mean, like I said, we don't want one company to monopolize the whole industry. So there has to be choices out there. And I think Binance is free to have partnership with any stablecoin out there. And, there's no exclusivity between them and us. But we know that there is other stablecoins listed on Binance, but we want to be the best. We want to provide new, different types of utilities for how do we expand to different parts of the industry, providing real-world assets. Again, talking about being a correspondent sort of bank for other stablecoins to build on top. And having Binance as a platform really also helps the smaller platform connect and grow as a whole in the whole industry. So we're really relatively small at this point in time, not FTUSD, but fun fact is, we try to take whatever wins we can. But a lot of talks about Tether, a lot of talk about Circle, but a lot of people don't know that velocity-wise, we are 10 times more than Circle. Velocity-wise, we are 4 times larger than Tether, if you do the math. We have been in existence for about a year and a half, just under a year and a half. We're at about almost 3 billion. Our top line was up to 4.3 billion last, I think, May or March. We were the fastest growing stablecoin to hit 1 billion at less than 8 months. We hit 2 billion in about a year and a half, about 12 months. So if we look at those facts, I think that just is a testament to the industry looking for other alternative stablecoins that, it's not going to be all apples and apples, right?
I'm happy you mentioned this, actually. One complaint I have on the broader stablecoin ecosystem is we often talk about assets and stablecoin, but we don't talk about velocity or volumes, which I think are equally important in many regards. Do you know what's driving a lot of this velocity you mentioned? Is it the Launchpad on Binance? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's Launchpad. I mean, that's one major reason, and Devere mentioned that earlier. Also, I think that, we're trying to really grow with different chains and getting into different markets. When we talk about payments, that's really on my priority list to focus on cross-border.
That's an interesting.
Yeah.
Vincent, I want to talk about the topic I know is very close to your heart, and I think was topic of the future of money as well. When we talk about the future of banking, right? I mean, obviously, we all have issues now with correspondent banks in general. It's probably, I would say, it's one of the weakest points we have in the crypto ecosystem right now. When we talk about neobanking, where we talk about a banking world that is built on DeFi, on smart contracts, I know you've been a big advocate of that. How do you imagine a future of banking on a neo-free banking model? If you think it'll happen as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, financial inclusion, we've talked about this for many years. How do we help the unbanked or the less banked? I mean, you mentioned this about developed countries, not only undeveloped countries with the unbanked, but developed countries like the US, 1 in 4 households doesn't have bank accounts. I think stablecoin will eliminate and provide a banking infrastructure. At least somebody, doesn't matter how much they make, now has the ability to actually start and creating a financial footprint, regardless of making hundreds of thousands a year or just a few $1,000s a year. But this can give everyone the opportunity to really start being a part of the global financial infrastructure, regardless of your status, regardless of your nationality. So neobanking, yes, neobanking still will require proper regulation, but this is where DeFi comes in, where I think there's builders, I think there's infrastructure providers like ourselves that needs to have the moral responsibility to be our own regulators and not only rely on governments telling us what to do, especially in an industry where the government themselves are still discovering how to regulate.
Also, I would argue that if you come on regulations, I mean, the code is there, right? I mean, literally, the regulations are there. In a way, also, there's no fractional banking on a model like that, or in theory, you could not have it, right? Which becomes very interesting. But how do you think that will interact, though? If I'm the Fed, I'm a central bank, and I'm regulating the banking system, this is how money is being created by the banking system when they're lending out. Because neo-banking right now could exist in parallel, right? In the same way we have stable coins that exist in theory outside of the payment system, right? How do you think the central banks will react to the rise of neo-banking, which is very small right now? I mean, DeFi is, I don't know what our TVL is right now, right? But I mean, it's still relatively small. How do you think that interaction will go?
I think they're forced to really look at that this is something that's going to be inevitable, especially when we see the growth of the fintech industry. And, there's a common saying, if 100% of zero is still zero. So with neobanking, you have now the global reach where we have access to 7 billion people instead of only 700 million. You know what I mean? So it's just the scalability of using neobanking will create. So central bank will have to look at that. And another ways as well is if you think about the poverty line. A lot of governments, a lot of heritage funds, a lot of pensions are actually broke because they have to take care of the people the pensions. But now, if you allow people to create their own small pension, that will relieve the pressure of governments, right?
Actually enable them to actually leverage it as well. I think it's going to be very interesting because if you think how the crypto industry evolved the last couple of years, where securities regulators came in, and we have all the the last couple of days we had so many issues with the SEC and others, right? It's going to be, I think, very interesting how this dynamic will evolve. And I agree with you. I think the fact that what you're mentioning, that it's really can enable a lot of people to access the system, it has a big role. What do you see then, stablecoins? What role do you see stablecoins play in a neobanking model? Do they become the de facto payment rails that everybody is using?
I think it's definitely for settlements. I think it's an important element to the growth of a lot of what we're building today on different protocols. One day, I've said it before, every major protocol will have its own native stablecoin. And to support that, there's going to be traditional infrastructure that needs to be in place. People want to provide yielding stablecoin with yields. In some cases, that's a security, right? But if you have, everybody has their role and responsibility dealing with the banking side, holding the asset, segregating the asset properly, making proper reporting, making sure that money is not in the wrong hands and being used in the wrong way, right? Everybody has to be specialized in what they're doing. So this is how I think stablecoin really plays into the whole ecosystem, in the sense that for us to service the RWA world, we're hearing a lot about that. I think it's not only the stablecoin summer, it's also the RWA summer now. Everybody's talking about how do we tokenize RWAs. But earlier Paul said there's, what, $800 trillion of assets globally, and there's $170 billion of stablecoin. You tell me RWAs are tokenized assets, and for people to actually settle on tokenized assets, you need a stablecoin.
Have you been surprised of the growth of RWA, like especially stuff like we're seeing treasuries now, and with BlackRock has hit $2 billion now? And
I mean, RWA has been around for a long time. If you look at the, for example, what do you call fractionalized ownership in real estate, back then, before blockchain, people were just taking one title and literally drawing lines on, you own this piece, you own this piece. But what blockchain did was, now I can actually sell off my piece without having everyone to agree. And then it evolved into STOs, which is the traditional, that's how we deem RWAs back then. It's just stablecoin, securitized tokens. But now RWAs is just a rebranding of the same thing. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be evolving as we know it, and people are now going to be a lot more innovative and more, I think, open to looking at how do we tokenize everything. I've tokenized, as a trust company, we've tokenized art pieces. So we held Andy Warhols. We've tokenized SAFs, safes, private equities. But it's just opening up. There's a lot of traditional industries now are starting to explore how the blockchain, how tokenizing their assets, how we can do settlements, for example, letters of credits. We've seen banks really stop transactions from two clients that have agreed to doing a transaction, but the bank says, well, I don't think I like that, because the country that you're shipping from has a lot of different, they're not ESG compliant. So the banks are playing this king.
Policing.
Yeah, the policing. And it's the same thing. I think regulators need this. There's an important aspect to regulating where you're either policing your members, or you're actually assisting them and educating them how to operate around something that's going to be inevitable.
you mentioned, I think, the letter of credits. I'm amazed how much the LC world has not evolved, but also I think people underestimate in a non-crypto world how much international transactions take place on stablecoins right now. I think as the business world and banks are realizing gradually, I think there's a lot of activity. Being based in Dubai, I just see it between Africa and Asia. It's absolutely incredible. You mentioned something about education. I know this is a special day because I was mentioning we have a lot of surprise. Today we're launching the, in partnership with actually First Digital, the world's first interactive crypto book for kids, actually. So it's coming out today. We'll do actually book signing later on in the lunch area. But I know this was actually a big thing. It's called Henri and Hodler. There's a character. It's a Solidity is in there. There's Nakamoto. I know it's a question a lot of people get. My daughter thinks when people ask my kids what I do in life, my daughter says, my dad works for Bitcoin. So we said we have to fix this, and actually, hopefully, it's a comic book with kids. You guys will all get a copy, compliments of really FDUSD today. So Vincent, really, thank you very much for supporting. But why you think educational crypto is quite important as well? You mentioned educating the banks, but what about the general population on it? And the kids, especially.
Well, of course, you know, my kids are a little grown up now, but your kids are quite young, and I don't think they've ever been inside of an actual bank, have they? Right.
I doubt it. Hopefully never.
So what we have to educate them on exactly the value of money, and which is kind of lost. But the value of money means how do you actually grow it, keep it, and understand that. I mean, there's a lot of scams in this world, but how do we educate them to identify that? So you know, we have to educate using whatever medium we can. However, unfortunately, you know, the biggest university in the world is YouTube right now, or Instagram, which anybody could be a professor, but we have to let them know what's actual real and what to do.
It's a big challenge, actually. Unfortunately, a lot of people also in crypto, their first interaction is often a scam or something like that, a pump and dump, and or pig butchering and stuff like that, which is quite sad. But Vincent, we have really a couple minutes left. I hear my best friend, the Bell, is here with me. So I want to do a couple of fire round questions, and I need 1 or 2 word answers, and the Bell is ready. Hope you guys are ready. Let's see, we're going to rock and roll with this. So Vincent, you're in Singapore this week. What's your favorite thing about Singapore?
My favorite thing about Singapore, I think the hawker food, hawker centers.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I had the dinner there last night. You're based in Hong Kong. The one thing about Hong Kong people get wrong?
That we're owned by China.
Oh, boy. So, Vincent, if you're not in the crypto industry, what would you be doing?
I think I'd be growing grapes for my winery.
That definitely a different pace than crypto, that's for sure. What is the one biggest risk we're facing as a crypto ecosystem right now?
Regulation that is bias regulation.
Yeah, good point. This is a tricky one. If you could hold one coin for the next 10 years, you're not allowed to hold, not FTUSD. One coin you have to hold for the next 10 years without selling, what would that be?
I like Sui.
Ooh, I was not expecting. That's interesting. Interesting. I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversation over lunch on that. I'm curious why, actually, but hey, we'll talk about that in a second. If you could go back to school today, or any students in the room, what is the one course you recommend students should take that you wish you had taken?
Drama class.
German.
Drama.
Drama. Okay, yeah. That's again very useful in crypto. That's for sure. Another one interesting. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Keep things simple.
Very good point, actually. Very good. It goes to the stablecoin mantra as well. Another interesting one. Vincent, if you can go back in history to live in any period back in history, which period would you want to live in?
When Satoshi came up with the white paper.
The Halloween day 2008. Here we go. Another one, talking about the potential Satoshi. Elon Musk gives you a call and says, Vincent, what is the one suggestion you have to make X or Twitter better? What do you tell him?
Get off X.
Get off X. Another one. The new US president, whoever he or she may be in November, gives you a call and makes you a crypto advisor. And asks you for the first thing you do. What is the first thing you would do as a new US president advisor?
I say, if I advise you, will you listen?
I wish more people would do that, actually. Another one, this is another tricky one. Vincent, you can launch a new crypto startup, and you can choose any existing crypto CEO or entrepreneur in the industry right now. Who would you pick as your co-founder? Tricky one.
Sam Altman?
Sam Altman, yeah, interesting. There's been a lot of things at Token 2049 this week, the entire week in Singapore Crypto Week. What is the one thing that impressed you the most or surprised you the most?
I mean, every conference, there's always something new. So custody was big a few years ago. Now it's stablecoin RWAs. So it's not. I mean, I'm surprised just how the community really absorb and rallies around the theme.
I'd say, yeah, it's been very energetic. And to finish it off at the Stablecoin Summit with Vincent Chok, the CEO of First Digital. Vincent, if you could have lunch or dinner with one person dead or alive, lunch or dinner with one person dead or alive, who would you have lunch with?
I think Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton? What's that?
I just want to know what he did with.
Guys, Vincent Chok for USD, guys. Thank you very much, friend. Vincent, here's a signed copy of the book for you as well. Thank you very much for that. Loved it. Thank you.
Let's give him another round of applause, everybody. Vincent and Henri. I really appreciate Vincent sharing his very spicy takes on a variety of topics. I didn't realize that Suey and Bill Clinton would be in the list of options. Would also like to thank Henri for being such a wonderful moderator and participant in that fireside chat. Just a couple of housekeeping items as well as some announcements to make, PSAs. If you are feeling a little peckish, a little hungry, there is going to be lunch that's going to be served over in the area. I think a lot of you folks are having snacks and beverages over there. So if you head back over there for the next 2 hours, there are going to be beverages and lunch provided, but we're going to keep it rolling with the panels and the talks. Also, Henri, as you noticed before, was carrying a book. He just published this book. It's going to be provided to all conference goers. So if you have any children or any friends, oh, Gunnar, there he is. Another First Digital member here. It's good to see you again, brother. But if you would like a free copy of Henri's book, he's going to be doing a book signing. So you go over to the lunch area,